He was all right. Red swung his eyes on Braden. A little weird, though. Chose a mining route nobody else thinks is worth a shit, and the guy had a bad habit of interrupting me while I was making calls home. Those things are all recorded here. Not exactly something I want my old lady to see. I'd replay him later and see behind me some naked ass coming out of the shower. What the fuck you scribbling into that notepad for? Fuss puffed out his chest. Maybe a motive. Before Braden knew it, Fuss was on his back, clutching the side of his face that Red had clocked. Amid the cheers that met the miner as he rejoined his horde, Braden heard Fuss down there mumbling. What? Braden asked, growing certain that one closed fist had sent his boss soaring back to sobriety. What'd you say? What he said. Now that's what we call in this business a clue. What is? Help me up, kid. Let's go. I see you met Red, Bob Bergling spoke from his chair. The station's main office blinked with all the buttons and screens exactly in the way Braden's imagination had foretold. Fuss removed a hand from his swollen eye. It'll go down. I must say, Bob crossed his arms, this isn't a typical request. Having had everything explained to him on their walk over, Braden piped up, We just need to see your office's recorded transmissions the day of our miner's death. Recorded transmissions. That, of all things, was what Fuss had clung on to on his way to the floor. Yes, I ascertained that. Problem is, the transmissions from this office go directly to Dobshire headquarters. There is, how shall I say, business-sensitive information. Braden's idea that they review all their guys' own recordings would happen, but he knew Fuss was riding a hunch they wouldn't be bucked off of. Bob, Fuss said, a little less wobbly now, I can sign every non-disclosure under the sun. We ain't working for one of your competitors. We're working for... Yes, Bob said, rising from his chair and walking to a control panel. A grieving family, one that pays. A large screen came on. Bob had Braden rattle off the date the miner died. A moment later, all three were watching. Gentlemen, Bob Bergling shouts from one side of the split screen. On the other side are two grim corporate types dressed in suits. Our man here has, incredible news! Pulled into the frame is their man. He is not dead. Here, Mark Massessi is very much alive. His now crushed face beams with excitement. Go ahead, tell them about what you found. Mark Massessi obliges his boss, looking into the camera. Gentlemen, today The screen shorted out. Nothing but static. What the hell? Fuss said. Bob smacked the control panel, how Braden had once done a stubborn soda machine. The screen came back on. This is phenomenal, says one of the corporate heads, this time with a face flushed red. This changes everything. The Dobshire man then turns and frowns at the other. Nothing is said, but it seems the one speaking understands something bad. With a far more somber tone, the one doing the talking addresses the miner. Young man, outstanding work. We need you now to go straight back to work. Tell no one. Big bonus for you. Yes, sir, the miner says, seen now marching out of frame. Bob, the Dobshire head then sighs. We need... The screen shorted out again. This time the static persisted. What the devil? Bob shouted, slapping the control panel to no avail. With wide eyes, Bob belted out curse after curse. The rest of the recording was gone. I'm sorry, gentlemen. Don't worry about it, Fuss belched. Come on, Braden. I gotta piss. No sooner had they shut the office door than Fuss began running. It was a drunk, slovenly run, but it was also a determined one. Where? Braden panted, catching up. Where are we going? Breathing heavy. To find Dougal. Why? Because you don't remember what that slimy Bob said? Assistant transmissions tech. He'd be the one who could mess with them recordings. It hit Braden. Maybe he's better with tech than he was at examining our guy. We may very well see, kid. But any pursuit to the morgue was halted when they saw Red Harbichuk. Red was in a full mining gear now, striking Braden as looking a lot like a Batman suit minus the helmet. It was a sleek exoskeleton, fully equipped with hydraulic appendages, a drill like a machine gun, and a pair of metal boots that now clunked around buildings and through many shadows. Without a word, they followed. Fuss had once explained that miners had strict working hours. Rebelling against this protocol meant something. Braden didn't know what. They followed, and the hair on Braden's arms sparked when, after a long tail, they watched him duck and enter the condemned tunnel. The one their guy had died in. Careful not to trip over any loosened stone, they too entered. What would have been utter darkness was illuminated by the lights that fronted Red's suit. The drill kicked on, searing and winding so loud that the two found a suitable boulder to hide behind and scream at each other. "What the hell's he doing?" Braden yelled. "Looks like he wants to see what his dead roomie dug up." Braden looked around. How one tunnel could differ from the next, he hadn't a clue. Yet the strafes and protrusions and glimmers did match the photos. The cave-in had blocked their man's final spot with considerable rubble. As Red hammered through, his drill heads chipped and sparked, igniting the far ends in flashes that brightened then burned away. Just as Braden was about to yell in Fuss's ear, the drilling stopped. "Shh!" Fuss hissed, ducking behind their massive stone. "Hear that?" "Who the hell's he talking to?" Fuss peeked over. "Himself." A miner, Red was saying over and over. "And a good miner. He wouldn't just... There's got to be something down here." Red reset his drilling, widening his stance, and engulfing himself once more in a shower of sparks. Braden would have perhaps noted his own weariness, his hunger, something far worse than jet lag since having soared clear past Mars in a stale state of sedation. But his thoughts were elsewhere. As the drill screamed, he took inventory of what he knew. Their guy had been shot and crushed. Just the order was in question. A station boss at first seemed excited, and billionaires seemed to have had conflicting reactions back on Earth. Recordings were mysteriously damaged or missing, or whatever, and now who Braden thought was their prime suspect was feverishly blasting his way towards... what? Right at that moment, Red punched through the debris. They all, Red, Fuss, Braden, all stood in the blackness. The lights fronting Red's gear were caught by every angle to bedazzle them in the brilliance of 1,000,000 diamonds. Over Braden's shoulder a blast roared so loud he thought the world had ended. Perhaps planted firmer by the beer, Fuss had not flinched. The lead detective had watched as the back of Red's head exploded. The drill was still winding down when Fuss lifted Braden off the tunnel floor. Through the ringing in his ears, Braden heard Fuss say, "Nice heckler and cock there, Bob." Braden spun to see a silhouette standing in front of a bright, approaching light. The outline became Bob Bergling, holding a pistol, when, out from behind him, the bright light became Dougled, moving forward with a mining lantern. "Don't," Bob cooed, watching as Fuss gave up on reaching for his own shooter. "Excuse me," Dougled then said, squeezing past them to droop down, tucking in his diamond pendant in front of its fellows. From Bob's other hand hung a string of detonators. "Tunnel's going to have another collapse," he said. "I suggest you both leave." The detonators were square packs of explosives, connected by wiring and already blinking. Dougled, who had now dragged Red's body past them, stopped. "Good, boss?" "Good enough," said Bob, looking at the ceiling and back down at the investigators. "You really should clear out." "But," Braden said, only now realizing he'd pushed his hands in the air, "but why?" It was Fuss who spoke. "Large diamond deposit, huh, Bob?" Bob kept his pistol pointed as Dougal took the detonators. "Largest deposit ever found on Earth or anywhere else, Detective." Braden not only dropped his arms, but frantically flapped them like a chicken. "But why then?" Fuss spit. "Supply and demand. Ain't that right, Bob?" "Carbon," Bob said. "Carbon is why we are here. Dry cells, electrodes, good for industry. Sure, diamonds are on our radar. One of our strongest commodities. But," Bob clicked a light on under the barrel of his pistol, reigniting the tunnel into a ballroom. "But a deposit that vast?" He clicked the light off. "We don't want world value plummeting now, do we? Braden frothed. So you kill one of two of your guys? Corporate prefers calling it keeping things under wraps. Fuzz cocked his head. So your bosses, and that recording y'all gunked up, they told you to grab that hand cannon of yours, come down here while our man was drilling his happy little heart out, shoot the poor bastard, and string up some electric detonators and collapse the shaft. Just a tragic little accident. Almost ready, boss, Dougald said, having sealed the sticky bellies of high explosives onto the tunnel ceiling. You're good, Mr. Rock. Real good. And thank you, Dougald. And who says it ends with just two? Bob pointed that short, sinister black barrel. Braden froze. Fuss unglued his back from the boulder. So, he continued, find the biggest cache of diamonds in the solar system. Hell, maybe the whole galaxy. And now seal the place off so them fat cats on that screen can keep diamond prices high. Fuss chuckled. Good work. Makes sense. I thought you'd think so. Bob lowered his gun and reached into his pocket. He dug around, then he tossed something to Fuss, then to Braden. Our non-disclosure agreement. The marble-sized jewel Braden held matched the one Fuss lusted his eyes over, matched the one that dangled from Bob's toadie's neck whenever his dirty work made him stoop too low. You gotta be kidding me. Can it, kid? Bob, Fuss said. How about one for our man's family, back home? The supervisor squirmed and squirmed and squirmed some more, then chewed on the thought, then squirmed again. Finally, he reached into his pocket and lobbed Fuss another diamond. Fuss slapped Braden's shoulder. Well, ready to get back to Earth? Braden looked at what he held, already smelling the recycled air of their awaiting spacecraft. I guess, he said, pocketing his own bloody jewel. I guess some things never change.